Yeah, Mist would be broken if it did that. Lost my lock. Ooh, hello. Think I'm gonna lose the tier when I get up here. But I think somewhere around here is gonna be the way in. Can I kill these? I'm looking for a really obvious spot that might also be covering the hole into the stairs. Oh, it's the exact same thing. Okay, glad you're sticking around a bit. Oh shit. Oh, it's dead. I thought the freaking Mimic died. Mimic was already really low health. Oh, use the perfume that I've got. Perfect. That makes things easier on me. You have fun with that now. Oh. Perfume. Perfect. And I didn't have to use mine too, so that kind of helps. Yeah, I don't quite see where the stairs would be yet. Further in. Ah, more of these damn things. Shit. I need to bring like Great Heal or something. Shit, I can't roll fucking out. every obstruction's gotta get me. Yeah, these are easy to get stuck on. Luckily, I wasn't in combat, so I could let my stamina do what it wants. I like how the game acknowledges you're just gonna blow everything you got whenever you fight one of these things. Because they're always giving me extra FP and stuff back. Shit. Oh, they're absolutely bosses, yeah. They're like mini bosses. Similar HP. There's a couple other spells or weapon arts I want to get that'll probably serve me a bit better than what I'm currently using. One just increases your damage for a bit, which I want to put on the dagger. Pebble... Is the Pebble art good? It's short range. It does good damage, but it's pretty short range. It's also slow to cast. The DPS is low, but the damage per cast is decent. Range on that's so short. Meteor, on the other hand, just does not give a shit. You're getting like 3 each. Zamor Ice Storm. If this is like... It probably works around... Yeah, this is basically going to be... This is going to be the get off my dick spell. This is probably a better version of Soul Flash. Knights of Zamor have challenged the Fire Giants since ancient times. So here's the thing. Rana learned cold stuff, or Ronnie learned cold stuff from a Frost Witch. Here we go. Right? Which I think is Rana, who might be the dark side of a poorly reincarnated Ronnie or something. And I wonder how much, in that case, whoever this Frost Witch is... Sounds like a sandwich. The Frost Witch. I wonder... how much they have to do with this area. Hey, I want this. This is gonna be like... This is gonna be 5 and 6. Oh, jeez, I gotta get to a site of grace real soon, don't I? I really have got to go north instead of not north. Did I get this one and go backwards then? I think I did, unless I need to go to the right. And what the fuck is this garbage? Come here, you. What is this? No, don't do this. Don't do this. Whatever the fuck is going on here, don't do that. I feel like that's a thing. Like, I feel like FromSoft has been struggling with that in this, and I can understand why. It's so much geometry to work with. But, like, I feel like there's not the strongest distinction between the mesh that controls where terrain is traversable, like the collision, and what you see visually. And generally, they should always have some separation. Talk to them. Oh shit! I can talk to Melina.
There is something I'd like to say. My purpose was given to me by my mother, but now I act of my own volition. I have set my heart upon the world that I would have, regardless of my mother's designs. I won't allow anyone to speak ill of that, not even you.
I think. Which is the one that's sealed in the tree right now? The actual, not the demigod, but the true god. Who's the god tier the M character? The one. It's not Millennia. America, yeah, there we go. So that's why I don't know if Melina is a like offshoot creation of of America, or if Melina is like the daughter, like directly by birth of America. I think she's more like an entity created to be like an envoy or something, and that's part of why she has no like physical. She has no strong physical presence that can act of her own volition until you get here close enough, at least close enough to the Ur Tree. Like there's probably a range in which she has the ability to act and to move and stuff. I think, or to at least to apparate, and it's probably like next to Sites of Grace, because those represent America's power, or close enough to the tree to have that radius, I would guess.
Shall I turn your runes to strength? Let my hand rest upon you. For but a moment, share them with me.
I don't know if I want to just put more points into mind.
Your ambitions.
I'm getting nothing for endurance.
The principles you would follow.
Getting like 2 a point at this point. I think I want to get to 20 endurance. I hate to do this because it feels wasteful when I've got points elsewhere, but like I think 9 points of intelligence are going to go into endurance and vigor, starting with endurance. Also, I want to try Samurai Storm. If this is fast, then this is PvP worthy. No. Charge version... also not great. Maybe it does good damage. It's not PvP worthy though. Like maybe on Wake Up, if you're really lucky, you can avoid getting backstabbed. So if you knock somebody down, like for example, like if you were to parry somebody, crit them, and then immediately go into the cast, like they'd probably get up quicker. Maybe the short cast. So far, it looks like Briar's is probably the skill that you want to cast on somebody up close after a knockdown, or if they're getting close to you. It could be something like, if somebody, like for example, if you do parry, like if somebody else is parrying and riposting, on the riposte at the beginning, like if you're a co-op or a secondary invader, you can cast this thing, and then maybe catch the host or whoever. Doesn't seem super PvP viable without assistance. Hey, so, good so far. I'm slowly, like, trudging through the end of the game. I haven't been in a hurry. I really don't want to finish this until I've scoured, like, everything in the game, but I also have to recognize that I should probably, like, slowly meander towards an ending just to, sort of break the at least break some of the spoiler wall, you know? Gonna stick with Mist for now. Didn't I get another spell as well, or am I mistaken? think I did. How many hours? On this character, like, probably 82, 84. '84. I don't know what to do with Shibuya yet. Oh, so you can't get up there, so I really need to go up and around or something. Like, I don't know how to get... There's something around here that goes around and then up. But I don't know how to get in. I gotta trace along the side of the mountain here to get in. Yeah, I don't... The most I could do in a single day was 17 hours. And that fucking killed me. I think my realistic target for time played is going to end up being, like... On work nights, no more than 3 to 4 hours, and I'm already hitting on 5, and that's dumb, and I shouldn't do it. Weekends, there are going to be, like, a couple of shifts of a decent range. Okay, the damage. That damage is real. You're happy you quit your job before this came out? If you have the breathing room to do so, then this is definitely like a game that having all that extra free time would certainly be nice for. I mean, like, realistically, if I really needed to, like, that's not an unreasonable... Like, I could survive it, I wouldn't want to. The only thing that I'm concerned about with my job at all is whether they force people back to the office. To the best of my knowledge, they're trying to tell... It seems like there's two basic perspectives that are at where I work right now. One is, like, the higher-end corporate people wanting to have a... Like, wanting to try to, like, push people to the office, but they know people will quit. A little bit further down in management seems to know that people are going to quit, and, like, don't want to bother with that at all and let people just work wherever they are. I think the highest end corporate people where I work don't want to ever have a scenario where nobody ever goes into the office ever, for any reason. I think there's probably going to be a push for, like, meeting days and stuff. But what's also happening, as far as I can tell, is that, like, because of the nature of the internet and the amount of bandwidth that game companies use, especially when you work on big games, there is not enough bandwidth to support, like, in any office under any circumstance, not enough available bandwidth to support transferring, like, game data, as well as... I know I'm going the wrong way, I just wanted to take a look around. I'm kind of curious what this actually is. Yeah, okay. I think, there is not a viable technical solution. There is my mark, I think. There's not a viable technical solution to allow people to work from home, like, and work from the office at the same time. With the amount of data that we're transferring, it's too much data transfer in a centralized location. Yeah, I work in game dev. I'm not really going to say anything about where I work or what I work on, but in the past I had worked in what is this guy? Along with a spirit, I'm now worried about this dude. I have in the past spent something like 10 years working on... Wow, that guy's got a lot of health. And a big whip? Yeah. Something like 10 years working on UI design. Prior to that, a mix of I would say, like, combat design and game balance. I've done, like, level design related stuff, community management, technical support, game server support, front and back end web development, like a bunch of mix of stuff before I sort of got generally picked to do UI for a lot of stuff for a while. That kind of kept for a long time. I think I'm missing some stuff. I've done like some graphic design stuff as well for game stuff, but I wouldn't consider it my strong suit. It's funny, kind of hang off like that. I feel bad for this Scarab. Good grip though, especially rotating the not quite whatever this teardrop thing is. But yeah, lots of random stuff back and forth working on games for a while. Then like probably about a 10-year stretch working on UI. And now I'm just a technical designer, which is much more my jam. Does that make me appreciate what an insane accomplishment the game is? Yes. And I think people are, like, the people who are being harsh on things like... So there are other developers who are saying things like, oh, you know, why is... There's Briars. Briars of Punishment. Are there two, or is this what it's called now? People who were complaining about... I actually need those, jeez. I used to hate getting these for the longest time. People were complaining about, like, how does, like Horizon devs, and I think one dude who worked on Battlefield were, like, complaining about, like, oh, you know, like, how does this game that has no regard for UX, like, I guess we can just give up on all our work now because this game, you know, like, to them has no focus on it. Man, I'm really worried about this. This is kind of a nice site. I'm gonna screenshot this. I don't agree with people who complain that From has no regard to UX. UI, maybe, like, their UI is like up, hit and miss depending. Like, they do a lot of things that I like and a lot of things that I don't really like. It's a mixed bag. I would say generally, like, the stuff, even where they don't really do the things that I want, they're by far exceeding the demands for the game. People who complain about the UX, on the other hand, I'm not sure they have a great understanding of what UX is all about. I think people are, like, what usually happens with UI especially is people will lump UI and UX together, and UX is a way bigger field than UI. And UX is things like structuring in the game so that, like, so one thing that this game has that the earlier games don't really have very well, for the Souls games anyways, is that before you can get the item that allows you to be invaded solo, you must fight an extremely well-geared NPC invader without any of the additional help you would normally have in Round Table Hold. Albrecht, or whatever his name is, right? Like, really strong character, has like 2-shot gear, lots of spells. The AI is surprisingly great. The AI for Albrecht is, like, better than most of the people I fought in PvP. So, like, surprisingly good timing, good use of jump attacks, two-handing, weapon arts, spell casting, like a huge... The gamut of stuff is very well covered there, right? You have to beat that thing before you can get invaded solo. And otherwise, they only really allow you to be invaded in co-op, which basically means that you have the additional assistance right there, right? And I think that's a good UX change for the Souls games. Now, on the other hand, bad UX is when you go and get the Lothric banner before you go fight Vort in, not Undead Settlement. The fuck is the name of that place? The beginning of Dark Souls 3, pretty much, right? Like, right before you go to Vort and then go to the settlement. You have to talk to this woman, I can't remember what her name was. She looks like a firekeeper. from Dark Souls 2. You talk to her once, she gives you the banner, you get some speech, and then you think you're done, right? And you walk off. The problem is that you have to talk to her again to get Way of Blue, and two things don't happen that should. One is you should really auto-equip Way of Blue. Second is that you shouldn't be able to leave without getting the Way of Blue. That's bad UX, because what ends up happening is that the systems that are dependent on that, which is A, Dark Moon and Sentinels, and B, having that entire system of Way of Blue work at all, that whole loop falls apart, right? So if you wonder why Blue Sentinels and Dark Moon can't get any summons, is because nobody ever gets into Way of Blue until very, very late. And I think it's possible that FromSoft ended up acknowledging that, or was somehow cognizant of that, because it's very difficult to get invaded solo beyond like once per type through most of Dark Souls 3. Like if you just wait around forever after your first like Mad Spirit and regular Invader and all that other stuff, you're kind of not going to get invaded again, unless you go to co-op and then everything changes. And I would that's funny. What allows you to make this, by the way? Is there like a 4-part message thing? Oh, there is. This one allows two things. Oh, but you can only choose one. You couldn't do something or something different, and then comma something else. You couldn't choose 4 terms. You can only choose one per section. Okay. I had ideas for that if you could choose 4 terms, but that allows them to get around having like extra, like needing to have like 4 more, 2 more spots for your terms. But does that make any sense where I'm talking about how UX and UI are different? I wanted to take a screenshot of this too. Sorry, I'm like dilly-dallying a bit. I think a lot of people are looking at UX and saying tutorial prompts everywhere. And fucking handhold a player and make them lazy and make them not pay attention. Like, players were so busy looking at fucking waypoints and fucking minimaps and shit, or detective vision and whatnot, that they stopped looking at the world and whatnot, and they stop focusing as much on the game. And you wonder why the player's mental bandwidth can't handle more complex, more involved gameplay, and why people complain shit's too hard. Sometimes you gotta like let go a bit and get people thinking and get people exploring, and then you can do cooler shit with the world. That is UX. And I think the people who are complaining about that shit are so in the form, they're so in the realm of, they're so afraid to, here's the problem with AAA games in general. You have to hit such a big audience to make your money back that you can't take risks, which means you have to give everything to the player. Gonna go back a bit more. Oh, this is a bad UX right here. This is a bad user experience. It's not like the most definitive definition of UX, but like part of somebody who's in charge of UX, part of their job is to find sticky points like that suck. Another example would be players getting stuck on ladders because they can't, like, they read messages instead of getting onto the ladders. Like, that's the stuff that somebody who does UX is going to look for. Now, UI is a lot of it as well. Like, UI is a chunk of it. It's not like most of it, but it's like, it's a recognizable percent, right, of UX, because getting the player to the systems that have to be represented through menus, getting the player around to that, having things like how many interactions do you need to get to a particular spot, or ensuring that the presentation isn't confusing, which dips into UI, but definitely can end up being a UX thing. They're not completely separate, but there's so much more to UX than just fucking making your UI and tutorial prompts and shit. One example of UX that was bad in Sekiro that they rectified in this, and I don't know if they had the option to turn it off. Yeah, show tutorials. You can finally turn it off. In Sekiro, that option may have been added later, but like every fucking random ass item you picked up, they would give you a tutorial for it. There was no way to just like say, please fucking get out of here. even though like in most Souls games you can just like look at your, you can have some description of what it does if it's an enemy picked up. And that's closer to an example of like what UX is. If you want a kind of an interesting insight into what UX is in a general way, written by somebody who's like somewhat well versed in it, look for a book called The Design of Everyday Things by somebody named Don Norman. Pretty sure I have that as an ebook somewhere. Oh, dude, yeah. So that's another thing. That's another UX thing. So when you move, like even if you stay in the same you're going in the same direction, the camera will fucking turn to do what to look at wherever you're going, right? And normally you would think, oh, that's cool. That keeps that's a general thing that kind of that pushes the player like it gets the camera in a position that's relatively favorable for the player. The problem with that is that it causes issues moving in corridors, especially if you're moving backwards and you're trying to turn the camera around to the target. More often than not, you have trouble with that, and it makes the camera difficult to turn, and that's bad UX. Same thing with like auto wall recovery. Auto wall recovery just does not work consistently and well enough. So like everybody, at the moment they start playing a Souls game, if they played anything before, they tend to turn it off. Because usually what happens is that when you're going in these random cramped areas, the camera just fucking like jerks off to the side, and then you're like mid jump, and you end up running off a ledge or whatever. Another example of that same bad experience is Final Fantasy games versus Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Can anybody guess what they have in common? That one is a good example of good UX and the other one is bad? I've mentioned this before. I want to see if anybody knows what I'm talking about. And this is a long way without combat to go. Yeah, Monster Hunter, I think, figured out really early on that you really don't want to turn the camera around when the player is often running away from monsters. And Monster Hunter is very cognizant of the fact that you're often running away from monsters, because in the earlier games, at least, I can't remember if they did that in World and the later stuff. You have a run animation specific to sprinting away from the monster, and it's this comical, like, fleeing, cartoon character running away animation. Oh shit! Oh god, we're doing this. Okay. What's something down here too? You have to die, and I gotta turn around. That's so it seems to be what we're doing here. I think I hear a second one. No. Ears are playing tricks on me. But yeah, any game where you potentially are running away from, like, you have a high frequency of running away from your, whatever you're fighting, you have to make sure that the camera doesn't fight you when you're turned around and running backwards. I think they might have made the decision not to necessarily leave the camera alone, because I think they want most players to go towards the target rather than like be a spellcaster running away. I don't think they want to encourage kiting targets and stuff. So can anybody think then? Can anybody then think what the difference is? What specific thing that generally exists in Final Fantasy and Castlevania Lords of Shadow that one of the games does better than the other? Haven't played either. So, both of them have a scenario where you cross from scene to scene with a static camera, right? And you're still moving during the scene changes, right? And the camera angle between those scenes is different. So with that hint, can you think of what the issue is and which game has it and which game doesn't? Because it's another UX problem. One of the games solves it and one of the games does not. What is that? Just a message? I'm not afraid of golems or automatons or whatever they are. I think they're golems. I think I picked up their weapons. I don't know what they even would look like. Maybe not. No, I don't know. That I would consider that obnoxious. I can't because of the way charging works, you have to do. You must hit Y first and not accidentally hit the spell first and then Y. Controller input during screen transitions? Yes. That's exactly what I'm thinking about. So I'll let you. I'll give you a minute to come up with a scenario that is bad in one game and reasonably addressed in the other. I've mentioned this before. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves with the scenario where it happens. That might be traversable down there. And there's a structure over there. What is that? No. That is probably... Damn, the distance is... That could be here. The Sanctum. Don't know the games well enough. Okay, so... Let's say, for example, the camera is overhead. The character is running to the right, and you do a screen transition, and now the camera has rotated, let's say 90 degrees for the new screen, right? So in Final Fantasy, what ends up happening, like let's say Final Fantasy 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever, like those are the games that I'm thinking about the most. In those games, if you're still holding right when the camera moves, and then let's say the camera goes like this, you're holding right and you keep going the direction you were going, right? And then you release, and then you hit right again, and you do, you turn right relative to the camera, right? So you're going right, and then the camera changes, and you're still going right, and then you release and you hit right again and you turn right. And that allows you to keep going in the direction you were going, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? Because you wanted to go in that direction, and if the camera suddenly changes, all the way around on you, then you don't have, like, why wouldn't you think that you should still be going the same way you were going? I think even, like, Resident Evil or something does that. The ones without the tank controls. Ooh, that's a big one. Castlevania Lords of Shadow, on the other hand, when you you go to another scene and the camera turns to the right, it immediately snaps you in whatever direction right relative to the camera on the news scene would be. And Castlevania Lords of Shadow also does screen transitions mid-jump with very high air control. Can anybody think of how incredibly terrible that is? How bad UX that is? And more than that, changing the camera mid-jump, you're jumping over bottomless pits. I am shitting you not. The game does that. So what ends up happening is that the first few times you go through it, or anytime you forget, you immediately just die. Because the game is like, nah, I know you're trying to jump to the side, but now you're just going to fall straight down into a bottomless pit. Yeah, it was something that eventually people figured out with regard to camera transitions, because it sucks so much to like be holding one direction and then suddenly the game says fuck you. Lords of Shadow, for whatever reason, just did not heed that. And I think whatever people had any level of oversight, if it was only some matter of like gameplay design, gameplay programming, whatever, nobody called it out. I don't know if they had any sort of UX lead, because UX wasn't really well defined as its own position. And UI, like, so here's the thing about game devs, especially even 10 years ago. UI wasn't very well regarded as its own separate department for games and separate field. Instead, what oftentimes happened for UI... Is this backwards? Yeah, shit. Go this way. What oftentimes happened was that somebody who didn't care to do it would get stuck doing UI, and, either might be part of their art team, or might be somebody working with an artist, or might just be somebody just winging it, doing their best programmer art, and hoping that it shipped well enough, right? Appreciate the follows, by the way. Where am I? Okay, so I can't go through anywhere here. I guess we're doing the Roomba strat. Just follow the... Oh, well, we can get this. This is fine. Is that on the map? Thing about Elden Ring that's seems to be part of the way that they're designing their UX is that they have a mix of stuff that you see on the map that you know to look for or interact with, and then other stuff that requires you to keep your eyes open. And I think they're trying to find the balance because they want players to pay attention, and not, like, for example, like in other games, everything would be a map icon or something drawn directly onto the map. And the people who complain that say Elden Ring has bad UX are the people who think everything should be on the map and players should be told everything, rather than rather than exercising their own intelligence, and having the room to explore and experiment. In defense of the people who are complaining about Elden Ring and saying that Elden Ring has bad UX, I think I never fully explained this before. I started and then got distracted a bit. Doing giant AAA games is a massive risk. You were not doing much more than gambling when you make a giant game, when you throw a shit ton of money into a game. And if you ever wonder why there is so much money put into AAA games to just, like, shepherd the player through an experience and not challenge them too much and not get them too confused, it's because you want to minimize, like, people complaining and refunding and stuff. You need to make sure they're... Look, when a lot of, like, developer pay gets tied to, like, Metacritic scores and stuff, you don't want to create a scenario where people complain about your game as a AAA game. You just need to fucking make your money. And as you try to inject, as much fun into that as possible, you try to have as much creativity with that as possible. But at the end of the day, it's like you take too many risks and you throw away a fuck ton of money. That's also why marketing tends to be so gigantic in AAA games, because you can't afford to not be known. You can't afford for people to not be excited about your game. And yeah. So indie devs can survive. and they're not gambling on as much money. You know, and some are taking big risks, right? They're, you know, some people are basically saying they're either going to get a loan, or sell their house, or whatever it ends up being, or like everyone's going to get together in a shitty house and, you know, slum it out as best as they can. Or people are going to work massively long hours on top of their regular job. Like, indie devs have to suffer through a lot just to make their shit work. But at the end of the day, it's like it's a few people and, you know, maybe $50,000, $200,000 to get anywhere with an indie game, right? Sometimes bigger budget, but like by contrast, AAA games could be like hundreds of millions. Like, if you contract, let's say, for example, like a place to do your trailer, like Blur, or whatever the other one was that I can't remember anymore. You might be putting $1 million into your trailer or more. Nowadays, probably a lot more. So, is that a regular giant? Is that like not a troll giant? So you just don't want to take risks. You don't want any reason for people to bounce off your game. No, that's just a golem. Never mind. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what a regular giant looks like, because trolls are apparently the descendants of giants, but not actually giants. Yeah, Bloots, that's the other thing, yeah. The safer option as an indie dev is to sit there and refine and work on something in obscurity, have maybe no payoff for years. For AAA games, you have people who need to make money, like they need to get their salaries and stuff. Not just like fucking executives and, you know, useless middle management people. But I'm doing 784 with a glintstone pebble? Yeah. You're gonna breathe fire, aren't you? Yeah. But yeah, like, unlike games like Kenshi, where by whatever circumstance you can spend 10 years and not even finish it, with other devs, if you're making a AAA game and people are like working full time, who need to get, you know, they need to pay for rent and take care of their families and stuff. You can't necessarily say nobody's making any money for 10 years, or whatever, whatever. Or, we're going to take a risk and not be able to make any money off of this, because even though like executives and management is getting probably more money than they should, at the end of the day, like at some point, people need to pay salaries. People need to be able to afford rent and shit. I will agree with anybody who says game dev doesn't get paid enough. Like, the unfortunate reality with a lot of game dev stuff is that there's somewhat predatory behavior regarding people who are, like, the people who are excited to get into games and will take, any amount of abuse to do it, are not making things easier. But on the other hand, it's taking, greedy executives to have that scenario as well. Because if you only blamed young, eager people who want to make games, then that's a similar argument to complaining about immigrants or whatever. And I don't agree with just saying, oh, well, the job situation sucks in the U.S. because, the work can be farmed out elsewhere or whatever. I don't agree with that either. I think that's more greed and shit than it is anything else. You worry the map would take the fun out of exploring, but they balance it really well. Yeah, I would agree. This game has, I think, by far some of the best exploration since, like, I would say probably since, like, Ultima 7 or something in that range. Where there's something interesting everywhere, and you're not held by the hands, and the more you take notes and pay attention, the more you're rewarded by the game. I actually heard, I've heard a bunch of people mention Morrowind was like that, where you'd receive a note saying, hey, like in this bar somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, there's a dude, and, you know, he's got some whatever. And you have to piece together, alright, I've never heard of this bar, I don't know where it is, I don't know where it is on the map. You had, like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Morrowind the one where, a lot of people were talking about having to read map signs to figure out where everything was? So, like, you'd literally have to go into a road and look at signposts to get direction, rather than just looking at objective markers? Yeah, the elevator into Suofor River was like a big deal moment. And one of the things that was really cool about that is that they didn't give you that bullshit musical stinger that every other game would do. To like say, oh, look at this, it's cool and shit. Like I don't like games that tell me how to think. I don't want games to tell me what my emotional reaction is. You know, like I don't want to be treated like that. I want to be belittled, treated like an idiot. I know how significant it is. You know? The whole playing a big giant crescendo is incredibly fucking disrespectful to the player. I don't know if the third one's gonna... Nah, it's not. Oh, it did. If... That's doing okay damage. Yeah. Rock Sling, for its slower cast time, is doing more damage per time. Especially per cast. And posture damage, too. So Salt, the funny thing about that is that my reaction to that sort of stuff is not necessarily, like, a loud interjection. Like, I'm not, like, audibly shocked. It's more like the internal process in my brain just breaks apart and just says, oh my god, I don't know what to do with this. That's not what the spell I want. That was dumb. Glad the horse tanked it. Yeah, Outer Wilds is good about that too. Those are the games that I want to play more of. I don't want to play fucking Objective Waypoint Simulator 2.0, you know. I don't want to play, you know, the next game that doesn't think I have what it takes to get through the game and just guides me through it on its own. Like, I don't want to play basically sort of like lightly interactive theme park video games. I want to play stuff where my interaction matters, and like, I want to play games where the quality of my interaction matters, as well as my ability to process the information that they give me. And I think the unfortunate reality, especially with AAA games, with the size of the audience that they have to reach in order to make money, and the amount of risk that entails, asking players to think for themselves and not being perfect about that is the same as making a stealth game and not having the vision systems be perfect. So think about playing any random stealth game, right? And the frustration that you have when an enemy who really shouldn't have seen you, or you thought you were well hidden from, suddenly fucking blows your cover and either ruins a stealth, you know, like any sort of ghost style achievement, or you know, a crucial NPC dies because you were spotted, or whatever it is, right? Or enemies are just really strong and just kill you instantly. Think about how much that sucks in a stealth game. And how perfect you have to be to make that work. I think the same goes for saying, okay, well, we're not going to handhold the player, we're going to ask them to think for themselves, we're going to have interesting puzzles, we're going to have relatively, you know, even genuinely difficult and engaging combat. But if the systems aren't, if the hitboxes aren't perfect, if the signposting isn't great, if the environmental storytelling isn't great, all that kind of stuff, right? If that stuff isn't just amazing, then the experience can very quickly fall apart, and that AAA investment suddenly becomes a giant waste of money. Oh, please, no more attacks, please. I really should have healed. Should have healed Torrent between those. I think Skillet mentioned in one of his reviews that Outer Wilds' formula for discovery and exploration is so exportable to other open world games. Yeah. Yeah. It's just... It's not that you can't do it elsewhere, the same way that, like, Dark Souls' system of the way that they laid out the map, and the way that they placed interesting landmarks and stuff, and the way that they lead your eye around or have, things incidentally in the right place. It's not that you can't do it elsewhere. It's just, it's very difficult to do it well and be consistent about it. Wonder how much, it's probably too late now. I did damage with it. It's too risky though. Oh, that's expensive. Oh, jeez. How is Magic, by the way? It's been great. It's exactly what I wanted. I would say there's only a couple spells that I think I can't find a situation for, but for the most part, they've been great. Lots of utility. You wish you could use wild strikes with fish weapons? Isn't wild strikes the one on the battle axe? I don't know what's wouldn't that just be a different skill altogether? Wild Strikes is great, though. I will say that. No, yeah, I know there's some weapon arts that go across multiple different weapons, like the regular like weapon spin works on everything. I need to figure out where we are. Well, hold on a sec. Have I passed by an Earth tree and not even? Noticed it? Be funny if Impaling Thrust was like the skill you had to use in order to get a rapid hit with the fists. Most weapon arts are compatible with the crap. Yeah, they are. I think probably like my main complaint potentially might have been with weapon arts is that where the fuck is this? My main complaint might have been something like there's like nothing that works on staffs. There's like two. One is built in and the other one is the same thing but worse. the spin one.